I'm just going to say it.
Go ahead.
How did this happen?
Zach made it happen.
I'm very excited. I think Zach made it happen.
Zach's
a dream maker.
Listen, for any of you out there, this is like the freaking Avengers Infinity Saga of guests when it comes to musical theater.
Yeah.
This is someone who made it so that when you go to the movies as a straight heterosexual male, nobody's going to question you for wearing green skin, green paint, a hat, and a dress. Nobody's going to question you.
Okay.
This is the man.
I need to know more about how you saw this movie, but okay.
This is the man that made it okay for anyone in the audience before Cynthia Erivo goes to, when it reaches crescendo, as they call it in musical theater, climax. Allows anyone in the audience to go, oh!
Oh my God, I had to turn down my headphones. Sorry, audience.
Oh my God.
This revolutionized theater from musical movie theater for 2024, 2025.
Yeah,
easily.
Well, it's quite a movie, and it's a good get. We're also going to be joined, audience, by Myron Kerstein, who was nominated for an Academy Award for editing Wicked. The reason we got to John was because Myron has cut most of my movies. He cut Garden State. He cut Wish I Was Here. He cut a movie I made called Going in Style. And so we've been friends a very long time, and his career has been on the up and up and up. And this is his second Oscar nomination.
He's gonna get nominated again when Wicked 2 comes out.
The Andrew Garfield musical that I loved. What was that called, Joelle?
The Netflix one?
No.
The one
that he got nominated for in the movie theater.
Lin-Manuel directed it.
Something like Boom something or
Tick Tick Boom.
Tick Tick Boom.
Oh, I love that movie.
That's a great one.
Did Lin-Manuel get nominated for directing that movie by any chance?
I don't know, but I bet you Joelle Monique could look it up.
He should have.
It was a Netflix movie. Y'all are crazy. Yeah. Tick Tick Boom was a Netflix movie. It's directed by Lin.
Oh, that's right. You
story
can
by
get
Jonathan
nominated
Larson.
for Netflix movies now. That's right. I forgot about that.
I love that movie. By the way, can we digress for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
Are y'all watching this new Netflix show called Adolescent?
Woo!
Is it Adolescent or Adolescence?
Adolescence. And I've only seen the first episode, but wow.
Donald.
It's intense.
Every episode is a oneer. And I'm not talking a oneer with fake wipes.
No,
I'm
I've heard of this
talking
show.
like they choreograph the most insane oneers. And you get to the end of the episode and you're like, I cannot believe there has not been a cut. Episode 2 takes place all around this whole school with like hundreds of kids. And they're here, and then they're there, and then there's a fire drill, and then they're chasing one kid, and they get him down. And then at the end of the episode, sorry, this is not a spoiler, maybe it is, but at the end of the episode, the fucking camera takes flight. They clipped it onto a drone, and it flies to another location and lands.
I'm going to put it out there. I truly believe that in some ways, this can be construed as a oneer, but there's no way that they can risk that much money and get to like the last 5 minutes of the show.
They did, dude.
And somebody go, fuck, what's my line? And them have to be like, all right, we're taking it from the top. Let's everybody roll out the fucking.
That's what they did.
No
I'm
way,
trying to.
dude.
You can watch the behind the scenes shit on YouTube. I'm trying to watch them because as a filmmaker, I'm so obsessed with how they executed this. But also, I don't want any spoilers because I'm only 2 episodes in out of 4. But they just rehearsed, and it was like rehearsing a play, except then they started folding in the camera, and it's like the cameraman's like a dancer who basically, at moments he's just going around, and then at moments I saw from the behind the scenes he likes getting on it, he like steps onto a golf cart, and then the golf cart takes it a tracking shot, and then the pilot.
It's all done on Steadicam, obviously.
No, it's not Steadicam. It's a gimbal. It's a handheld gimbal.
Got it.
But I mean, first of all, the technical production aspects of it are one thing, but also it's brilliantly acted, and it's the #1 show on Netflix. I really, really recommend it to everybody.
Amazing.
How's everybody doing? We haven't been together in so long. I miss y'all.
You've been working, man. You've been working up a storm.
I've been directing Han Solo.
I don't know if he likes people calling him that. I'm going to be honest with you. If I met him and I was like, I mean, I have met him, but when I saw him, I was like, holy shit, Han Solo. He'd be like, I will never be friends with that kid.
He wouldn't like that from you. No.
I don't think he likes that from you. I've been directing Han Solo.
Well, I wouldn't say that to Han, but if you ever call him, sometimes I call him, I'll say
Indy.
something like, okay, Mr. Ford, you're standing here. And he goes, Mr. Ford's my father.
I love it. I love that Harrison Ford is still like, I'm a young man. You call me by
there's funny
my
shows.
name,
That's at the
Harrison.
moment, like,
Not by my senior.
There was this moment where something was broken on the set, like a piece of molding or something, and the grips are trying to put it back in place. He goes, let me do it. He starts kicking it. He goes, I was a carpenter.
That's adorable.
He's like one of the most famous. He's like one of the most famous former carpenters in the history of carpentry.
Him and Jesus.
Yeah, one of the most famous. Did you know that Han Solo was a carpenter before he became Han Solo? That's the thing. Harrison Ford was a carpenter. He was actually laying freaking siding in the office when he was asked to audition. Every human being on the planet is like, yo, maybe I could Harrison Ford it someday. Him, Daniel Day-Lewis, most famous shoemaker other than freaking John Madden. Freaking most famous. I say John Madden because John Madden stole so many shoe ideas. And I'm not saying Daniel Day-Lewis did. But my point is.
Got it.
All I got to do is read Daniel's face. Daniel's face is always the one. What the?
Yeah, well, Daniel's a good read.
I can't hide my emotions.
Daniel's a good read for when you say something that we don't know what you're talking about. Daniel's face tells us that we don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
But so anyway, yeah, I've been directing Shrinking. It's so fun. I just really like the cast. Everyone's so cool. It's such a good show. Everybody who loves the show, you're gonna be blown away by season 3. It's really, really good. Really fun.
Did you get on the pit set? I know that was a goal of yours.
I did. I got a tour of the pit set.
How was it?
You know, it's incredible because it's enormous. It's a huge, huge set of an ER. And what they do is everything is controlled. They don't bring in any film lights. Everything is practical lighting within the hospital set.
Wow.
And so the way they shoot the show, they choreograph it, and then they don't wait on almost every other thing that's made. You then go and light it and bring in lights on stands and flags and all sorts of things to shape and cut the light. But on this show, they don't do that at all. Everything is lit from the actual practical lights that are built into the ER set. So it's really cool. From someone who's a geek of film production, it was a cool thing to see.
If you're the DP, how do you? It's just camera setups. Then that's it.
It is. I think like
you do not have a lighting department.
Yeah, every single thing. I'm sure they have some lighting guys on in case they have to adjust something. But everything's in the lighting board. So if they want more light on the person, they'll just bring up the dimmer on that little area. Almost like a play. I think then they told me they have a couple little cheap tricks they do where they can sort of snap something into one of the ceiling lights and that will bring light further down. There's all these little things, but it's just really, really incredible. And what a great show that is. If you're not watching The Pit, that's just fucking incredible.
I love it.
That's. I mean, my mind's going crazy right now because all I can think of is that what we're gonna do when and if we do Scrubs.
I really hope so. By the way, Donald, because it gives you so much more time to, particularly the stuff that's just hospital, like and Scrubs. When you get into fantasies and all that stuff, of course, that's different. And specialty shots, but with Scrubs, the camera is such a character, whereas The Pit, it's made to feel almost like a documentary. But I got to tell you, when we're just doing straight if and when it happens, and we're just doing straight hospital stuff, we'd have so much more time in your day to not be waiting for all these lighting setup changes. So I would love to convince whomever the DP is to do it that way. I guess it would come from Bill. Bill would just hire someone to say, do it that way.
You took the tour on your own, or you and Bill went? How'd it go?
No, so Shrinking also has just incredible sets. For those of you who love the show, all of those interiors are sets. They have houses in the real world that are the exteriors, but the office set, Liz's house, Jimmy's house, Gabby's house, all of the big interiors are all built huge sets on stage. And the construction coordinator, sorry, there's an ambulance. I'm in New York City. The head of construction for Shrinking also did the pit. And he was like, someone told me you like the pit. I go, yeah, man, can I get a tour of the set? Because they're not shooting right now, but the set is so massive, they left it up. And he's like, of course. So he arranged for me to get a whole tour. And I thought it was just going to be him. But he brought like the art director, the production designer, and like they gave me this amazing walkthrough. They were so kind.
That's awesome.
They gave me merch. They gave me fucking pit merch. I got a pit ski hat.
Ooh.
That's how you know you're on a hit show. When they're like, listen, we're just going to keep the sets up for the summer. We're going to keep it up for the whole year. We're going to just rent out the stage. The stage is ours. Don't even worry about it. We're just going to leave it up. That's how you know you're coming back next year.
Yeah. Well, some of these sets are just, it's crazy. One of the Shrinking's big sets, they moved stages. And when you see this thing, you're like, I can't believe the amount of work it must have taken to fucking take this all down and put it back up on a different soundstage. It's really,
That's
really
impressive.
cool. There's some
It's
great
most
work
impressive.
happening on that show. Really good stuff.
Can we get into a little bit of Star Wars?
Yeah, but let's keep it brief because we love all those things. All of us love all those things, but
Have you seen, this is how long it's been. Have you seen the trailer for Andor?
Yeah.
No.
Are we not ready for this? This shit look, have you seen the most recent trailer for Andor?
Yeah.
Okay.
I cover all this stuff. It's so good. It's delightful.
Okay.
I'm very excited. I was curious about the pomp and circumstance of the first trailer where they were like, oh, the critics love it. But I get that they're trying to get people to see it. Disney recently released, I think, all the episodes on YouTube, or at the very least, the pilot is available on YouTube. They're like, please, for the love of God, watch season 1 and come check out season 2. So they believe in it. I'm excited about it.
This looks more Star Wars than anything I've seen in a really, like, it looks like gritty. It looks like they made the Empire Strikes Back again.
Rebels in this. It's about to be really
like they made
good.
the Empire Strikes Back again, dude. Like that's what it looks like. At least that's what it looks like to me. The color tone, all of that stuff.
Are you excited about Thunderbolts?
You know, I'm going to be honest with you.
Go ahead, be honest.
I just right now, Marvel is putting out things that I'm excited for Fantastic Four. Let's put it that way. We'll see about that.
Okay. Joelle, are you excited for Thunderbolts?
I am. Here's why. Marvel has had a bit of it's been rough over there. We can't lie. But it's clear they believe in this film. It's clear that Disney is trying to do some new stuff. They have a wild, wonky schedule for Andor. They were like, listen, A24 freaks, y'all love cinema. Come see this. It's going to be movies in a big way here. So that makes me excited. Plus, you know, we got love for Florence in this house. She's talented. There's a lot of good names up in there. So I'm really thrilled for
I don't know
this.
if they did it off of, they cut that trailer that was basically like, this is an A24 movie. And I thought that was really clever. I don't know if I thought that was really good marketing because that kind of went viral.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way this movie is A24. This shit, and halfway through the movie,
When you do see the trailer I'm talking about?
Absolutely. Halfway through the movie, everybody's going to be like, holy shit, this is like more special effects than any of this is an Avengers movie. This is an Avengers level.
No, but I think
movie.
the level of marketing was we didn't just hire. I mean, I'm just seeing what they're selling, and they're saying we hired a lot of people from all of these A24 movies that you love, and these are the people executing this particular Marvel movie. It might be a bit different because it's been made by these people.
I think that's a bonus, if anything. to.
Yeah, so do they. That's why they're cutting trailers about it.
Yeah. I'm going to say, and I will say this also. I feel like, and this is me predicting the future, I feel like this universe is dying, and that's why the colors are starting to turn into this also. I think we're gonna experience a new reality in the cinematic Marvel universe to combine all of these characters within the next 5 years. I think that's where this is going. And
Well, let me tell you
with
something.
the Thunderbolts.
I think you can bet on Florence Pugh.
Anytime. I will bet on her anytime, any
If
day,
you're going to
anywhere.
buy stock, if you're going to buy stock, you could buy stock in Florence
That's
Pugh.
safe.
Florence
That's
Pugh.
a safe bet. That is a safe bet.
When is this going to air, this episode, Joelle? Because my event is coming up.
Next Tuesday.
And
Next Tuesday.
okay, well, my event for the Midnight Mission, which is a celebration of the music from the Garden State soundtrack 20 years later, is coming
This
up
weekend.
March
This weekend.
29th. Oh, my goodness.
That's this weekend, buddy.
That's not this weekend. That's next weekend. Please. I got a lot to do.
It's this weekend.
When
they're
people
listening.
listening,
it's
it'll
this
be this
weekend.
weekend.
You
Yes.
Oh, shit.
dumbass.
It's this weekend when people are
dumbass.
listening. And I
We're
wanted
recording
to
the past, folks.
I wanted to make sure everyone knows that if you're unable to come, we've partnered with the company called Veeps.com, VEEPS.com. And you can buy the stream of the show starting April 6th, which is my birthday. And thanks to our good pals at T-Mobile, every single cent of the money you spend to buy the stream goes directly to the Midnight Mission, which is really, really cool. Because these things all cost a lot of money. So to be able to have T-Mobile offset the production cost so that every cent of you buying the stream from anywhere in the world, goes directly to the Midnight Mission. So check it out. We're going to have a lot of special guests, including, spoiler for you podcast listeners only, Donald Faison.
I will be there. Thunderous applause, damn it. I will be there.
You know who else
I
is
will
going to
be
be there?
there.
I'm going
Yeah,
to spoil another one for the podcast audience.
Oh.
Sarah Chalk.
Yo, it's
Chucky.
going down. I have a feeling there's going to be a whole lot of Scrubs people at this event.
They're all coming, but only you two are going to be on stage introducing a band with me.
Nice.
Is there going to be a teleprompter?
There will be a teleprompter, but I'm also going to
We
write
could go off
your...
the cuff. We could go off the cuff if you want.
Well, you know the bit we're going to do. I'm going to talk about how you said, are there any black people in this movie?
Right. And then I'm going to say, are there
That's
any black
perfect.
people at this concert?
No, don't do that.
Performing in this
Please
concert?
don't do that.
Can I do
Please
that?
don't do No.
I can't do that? Okay. Damn.
No, I
well,
don't think
there
that's
goes
funny.
that joke.
That's why I don't want you going off the cuff. That's why I don't want you going off the cuff, bro. You're sticking to the script. Of all people that are going to be on that stage, I need you to be sticking to the prompter.
Why?
Because you go rogue and say stupid shit.
That's not stupid. It's a good question.
Remember when Doja Cat left you hanging?
Yeah, I do remember that. That was me going rogue and doing some stupid shit.
He was trying to high. We
I
introduced
should have stuck to the
Doja Cat at
script.
some event, and he went to do a high five with her, and she didn't see him. She wasn't being rude, but then Donald left his hand up there, and he didn't know what to do with it. So then he started high fiving it himself. It was
No,
so
I high
cringe.
fived you. That's all. I high fived you.
You
Yeah, I
didn't.
did.
I
I said like this. I
yourself.
pointed. I
Oh, you
pointed to
pointed.
it, and then you hit it. Yeah, don't even try it. Don't
was
even
cringe,
try.
though.
That's
Sometimes
called
I
not
think about
sticking.
that.
Yeah, that's called not
Sometimes-
sticking to the script.
Yeah, sometimes I think about that in the shower, and I shiver.
No, you don't. But
Yeah.
it would
When
be.
Doja Cat left
I know
you
you would.
hanging.
I know you would shiver. I know you would shiver if I said that shit about how many black people are performing at your show. You'd be like, that'd be 20 weeks later in the shower. Oh
Yeah.
God, I remember that
Please
time.
don't say anything that's going to make me shiver. I don't like it when you go off script. I'm going to put your lines in the prompter in bold with an underline. Sarah's going to get a regular font. You're going to
No.
get bold and underlined.
No. Wait,
Is John
okay,
Chu here?
so-
He is. Yes, we have both guests
Yes,
here.
Is
John,
Myron
what are we
Kerstein
doing?
here?
Both of them.
Myron Kerstein
my
what
is
are
God,
we
here.
I'm nervous.
doing? What are
I'm
we
nervous.
doing? I'm
Donald,
not
don't
nervous.
embarrass me.
I'm not going to embarrass you.
I wish you had a
First question.
teleprompter right now.
First question. How do I get in your next
No,
movie?
don't do
No,
that.
no, sorry, no. Be cool, be cool.
God.
Wait,
I
hold
wish
on.
we-
That would
Chill,
embarrass you
chill,
guys?
chill.
That would
wish we-
embarrass you guys?
Just start chill, okay?
Okay.
Joelle, I wish we had a teleprompter for Donald on this fucking Zoom call.
We just got to rely on Daniel's face.
Yeah, we have to rely on Donald's face. Donald, watch Daniel's face. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Stories about a show we made about a bunch of docs and nurses and a janitor who loved to hate. I said he's got stories that you all should know. So gather round to hear our Scrubs Rewatch show with Zach and Donald.
Holy
God.
shit! Yo, it's real.
Oh my God.
I can't believe we did this. This is the best thing ever. Okay,
there they are.
Listen, you guys. I've been
calm down,
prompted
Donald.
to be chill. I've been prompted to be chill and not act crazy. But we have freaking cinema royalty, in my opinion, in the motherfucking house.
You guys,
Good to see you all.
good to see you. Welcome, Myron and John. That's our engineer, Daniel, and our producer, Joelle. And I know you know there are a lot of fans of the movie Wicked, but probably the number one fan in the universe up there is Donald Faison right there, who has already sung some of the songs for our audience before you've joined us.
I said I wouldn't do it when you're on the air. I'm not going to embarrass myself. Listen, we need to stop now. Just, Zach, proceed because I feel it coming. It's coming.
Just calm down.
It's coming up. It's coming up.
I love it.
John, I'll be the more calm voice and say, Donald and I love musicals, and that's one thing we've shared in common since the day we met. It's funny because he's into sports and so many, and Marvel and Star Wars and so many things I'm not into. But one thing we overlap with is our just love of musicals. And we both, from the bottom of our hearts, think you did the most fantastic job with this movie.
Both of you did an amazing job.
Well, I'm going to get to Myron. I'm starting with John.
Right.
Myron, I'm going to get to. But John, I just think you absolutely crushed it. I loved it. It was my favorite movie of last year.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's been a long time coming for all of us to be together. I mean, I've heard stories of you for so long from Myron. He's given me all the secrets of how you've done things. So it's been perfect.
I trained him.
That's right.
So for those of you who don't know, I think I mentioned it briefly in the intro, but Myron cut Garden State, and he was really, just absolutely incredible editor, but particularly with music. I mean, the reason so much of what worked in Garden State with music was because of Myron and how he placed songs. And I was just thinking the other day, Myron, of how, I had always imagined that ecstasy party scene to be like something like that, but I just didn't know how the hell we were going to execute it. And I remember you came to set one day. It was so long ago. I think you may have even brought like a VHS tape and put it in my trailer in the VHS player, and I just was so floored. I was like, "Oh my God, I never thought it was going to be as good as that." So Myron, from the very beginning of me meeting him, has been someone so gifted with music and heart. So you guys are such a perfect marriage for each other, because this is like the epitome. I mean, a movie cannot get bigger when it comes to music and heart than what you guys made.
Oh, that's so nice. And the only reason, because we got paired together, I never, on Crazy Rich Asians, I was looking for another editor, and someone suggested him, and the one credit that brought him into my life was Garden State, 100%.
Oh, wow.
Seeing, obviously that soundtrack became a part of my life. That movie became a part of my life. I was like right in the pocket of who you were speaking to in that, and so it's been, and it awoke me to different artists and things like that. So, and how you can make a movie where music is at its using the power of music, which is where it says so much more than what words ever could, and it can be expressed cinematically, visually in ways, and in cuts in ways that no other medium can do. So it was really.
Was music always a part of your life? Because I'm sorry to ask. I know you've been on a mega press tour, and some of these questions you've been asked a zillion times. So I promise I have some original ones. But it's hard not to ask you, as someone who's so gifted. I mean, you started with dance, right? With the dance movie.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
And
but
step up, and then, but like, how was it always? Are you a dancer? Do you dance at all?
No, I mean, I've taken dance when I was a kid.
How did you get in? How did Step Up land? Like, how did you know you were the right guy for that?
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I'm the youngest of 5 kids. And my parents are immigrants from China, and they wanted all us kids to be as Americanized as possible, so they could be the opposite of what they came when they came here, because they didn't speak a word of English. So they put us in dance classes. I took tap for 12 years, because I had to be with my sisters basically when they were taking it. I took drums, saxophone, violin, guitar. I'm not good at any of these things, but I took it. And every weekend, my parents would take us to the theater in San Francisco. Musical season, opera season, ballet season. Like, we would be there all the time. Of course, we'd watch movies all the time. TV was always on in our house. So it was just sort of a part of me. And when I started actually working with the camera and editing with my little VHS camera at that time, all my friends were dancers or musicians, and so I was the guy with the camera, and so that's where I was sort of theater kid adjacent. I was part of theater, but not great at it. But I knew them well enough that I could try to communicate what I knew from the film side into what they wanted to say. And that's where it sort of all started. And for Step Up, that came to me, and I did not want to do it because it was a direct-to-DVD movie. And I called my mom. I was like, I can't have my first movie be a direct-to-DVD movie. I was discovered by Spielberg from my student short. Like, this is not right. And my mom's like, when did you become a snob? I was like, if you are a storyteller, you can tell a story in any medium, in any way. You could be by a campfire. You could be in a car. Like, prove yourself. And I was like, you're right. I'm going to make the best damn direct-to-DVD dance movie sequel of all time. And that's where it's all sort of started.
And you did, right? And then they changed it to not go direct to DVD, right?
Yeah, it became theatrical. 2 weeks after I joined, and I repitched it in the way that I thought a dance movie should be. Instead of 5 numbers, I wanted 13 and all these different things. Disney, who distributed the first movie, came around and was like, hey, let's listen to your pitch. And 20 minutes later, they're like, we have a slot, but it's in 9 months. Can you get it done in 9 months? And we did. That started me off.
Wow.
So listen to your mom. Listen to your mom.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of the kids from that movie went on to do several of the sequels too. And stuff like that, and are looked at as high levels in the dance community also. Do you still use any of them when you're doing other projects?
Yeah, I mean, amazingly, one of our actors in it, Christopher Scott, is one of the dancers in it. He plays this bit part. He auditioned for us in Baltimore because that's where he's from. He came back after shooting, and we all became friends because we're all young. It's our first movies, and he would just hang out at the edit room. And now he's the choreographer of Wicked, and he choreographed In the Heights. And so I watched him transition from dancer to choreographer. He watched how I pitched movies, and I taught him how to use certain things in Photoshop and Keynote and whatever. And he used those skills to get his first choreography jobs. And so now we get to work together. It's really
the choreography in this movie was just absolutely incredible. I mean, what is it? We have so many questions for you, but how does it feel when you watch these kids and all these videos of people, doing the choreography? Like, this movie has meant so much to people of so many different ages. I mean, we're 50 years old and we're walking around singing it. And then you've got the little kids walking around, doing the dance moves on TikTok. I mean, it just must be so gratifying for you guys.
That's the best. It's the best. And Myron and I share, we're texting each other videos, TikTok videos back and forth of people doing it. We all, especially as storytellers, we want our stories to be seen and to be accepted. And for them, people to like dig in even deeper and learn the choreography. I mean, that's how I learned watching all the Michael Jackson videos and, recording MTV on my VCR and just watching it over and over and over again, studying. Like, to me, that's the ultimate goal from it.
So when you just, if we can just begin to break down. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say, how did it come to Cynthia and Ariana? I'm sure every woman who's the right age and can sing auditioned for you, both famous and not famous. We can tell why you chose them because they're both absolutely brilliant. But what was that process like? I read in my notes that you initially thought you'd hire unknowns.
Yeah, I thought Wicked was big enough that we could actually like break somebody, and I didn't want anything sort of dictating how the movie should feel or be because there's some big star or the studio wanted that. And so when I came in, it was very clear that studio knew that Wicked could be big enough that we could do that. And so that was sort of like whoever's best for this. And in my head, it was like, well, we're going to discover someone, so Wicked is its own thing. And of course, we got inundated with calls from everyone around town to come, and we said, there's no offers. Everyone has to come in and read, and everyone starts at the same spot. And we saw a lot of people, and all really, really good. I mean, everyone prepared. Everyone was so amazing. But there's a moment where someone just takes it from your lap. Yeah. And we had been down the road of seeing a lot and sort of debating. What we realized is, we had to get experienced people because these songs are way more difficult than I thought they were.
Yeah.
When people come in, their voices are breaking. I mean,
they're
range
double black,
is huge.
They're double Black Diamond songs.
Absolutely.
I have a funny memory, just to digress for a moment. I was reading in New York at Bernie Telsey's casting office. I don't know if Bernie cast this, did he?
Bernie did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, for those of you who don't know, Bernie Telsey is by far the biggest Broadway casting director, particularly musicals. He's almost got a monopoly on Broadway musical casting, and he's a brilliant guy. And I was auditioning, this was many years ago, but I was auditioning for the production of Angels in America. And next to me in the next rehearsal studio, they were auditioning women to replace Elphaba.
To replace Nadel Nazim?
No, not Adele Dazeem. This was after Adele Dazeem.
Okay, got it.
I think it may have been for a tour. I don't know the specifics. All I know is that while I was waiting, they have gotten this down to such a science that they really just have them come in, and these girls were just women were walking in, and they were like basically like like, just can you hit the fucking note or not? And then we'll talk to see if you can hit the note. And
I don't get a ramp up or nothing, huh?
No.
Just come in. You ready?
No.
Go.
It was basically, it may have been like 2 bars before the note. I don't know. But it was brutal because they were just like, next. And I was shocked how many of these women walked into this audition like, if you can hit it or not. Why the fuck are you here?
Why are you here? There's that one chance that God will bless me right now at this moment, and the line, and it'll come out the exact way it needs to be.
I have never hit it before, but I will hit it at Bernie Telsey's casting office.
Yeah, it was an intimidating lobby because you could hear everybody going for it. And that would be if you're an actor walking in, and we did not just say you had to be able to sing. I mean, this is a movie, and so we needed them to be able to act, and the camera needed to be able to be 2 inches from their face, and then and give layers to this character, and not be imitation of what we've seen before, but something fresh and new. So there was a lot to ask of them, and there were people who were like, you know what, don't even worry about the big notes. Just go do what you can. If you fail, it's all good. There's things we can do that can help, and. But when those 2 ladies came in, it was just like they had the full package.
It's intimidating. Hold up, but it's intimidating when Cynthia Erivo, who is known for singing very well and killing it, and is known for being such a phenomenal actress, had to walk into the audition with a blanket tied around her neck and a damn broom
from the 99-cent store.
From the 99-cent store to freaking get a leg up on this audition, man. It's real in the field when somebody who is accomplished as she is.
I would like to walk into audition rooms with the confidence of Cynthia Erivo walking in to sing Defying Gravity, because she must have been like, I got this.
Well, we started
man, she walked in with a blanket and a broom. What are you talking about?
Let me clarify that. I think that was like a jacket that she had on earlier. She had taken that off because we sang Wizard and I first, and she was singing opposite another big actor, and that actor was like, she was like awestruck by Cynthia. She's like, she just sang at a sold out Disney concert hall last night at like 9 p.m. And she's here this morning. She's like, you know how many people would pay for tickets to be sitting here in this room right now to watch her sing Defying Gravity? And so already you could feel that vibe. And she sang Wizard and I first. And when she sang those first words, did that really just happen? She became a little girl. She became not the Cynthia Erivo on the big stage at the sold-out show. She became a dreamer in their dorm room. And I felt so connected with that little girl singing and then watched her grow in that song to hit those final notes that it was very clear very quickly that she was our Elphaba.
Right you must have been so excited. I mean, when I'm auditioning people, people think, people don't know this, but you're really quite nervous. You don't know if you're going to find the person. You're like, I hope we find the person. And when she performed, you must have been like, oh my God, we found the person.
Wait, hold up.
Absolutely.
You mean how often is it that directors and production settles and says, you know what? We didn't find the person, but we found somebody close enough to just tell this story. How often does that happen? Hold on. This opens up a new conversation for me.
Well, I don't know.
Because now this makes me feel like, I got the part, but there's a possibility that I wasn't right for it, but they just settled because they could tell the story now.
I don't know if it's settling. It's we're out of time, and for me, I can only speak for me, not John, but we're out of time, and this person is great. They might not be exactly what I pictured, but maybe they'll be better than I could have imagined. But we need to go and we need to start. Now that's what Jon and Myron are engaged in is something that's 18 months of pre-production. So you certainly have a whole lot more time to make sure you find the right person for your gargantuan movie.
But there's always a leap of faith. It's always there's always like a section that you're like, well, I think that I have confidence they can get there in these areas because they haven't dug into obviously the text and all that stuff. So it's always just a little bit of like trust your instincts.
Myron, how often are you like, look, all right, it's good, but I can fix it in post. Don't worry about it. I'll fix it. I can fix this. Don't worry about it. I mean, you're like freaking Scotty in a lot of ways.
You're asking him to answer that in front of two directors.
When I get your dailies, Donald, I'm always like, I could fix this. I don't worry about it.
Right. You become Scotty. Yeah. I'm giving it all I can, Captain.
No, what I love is that, every actor is bringing on the day, and then I'm there to be the next collaborator to bring my own take to it, and everyone's going to do the best job. And what was so nice about Wicked is that I was privy to see some of these auditions, so it was a real gift to see Jon's process. And then when you did see Cynthia and Ari step in, you're like, oh my God, this is on another level. And of course, I think that there's a different version of every movie that with a different cast in there. But then when you actually see it together, you're like, oh, this was inevitable. This is exactly what it's supposed to be.
Did you guys always plan to have it be two films? I wanted to ask you that. Was that from the get-go, or because I'm so glad you did, because it's so much movie, the idea of trying to cram that whole story into one, but was that always the plan?
Well, when I came in, they had been developing many scripts for the past, 20 years before I ever came in, and those scripts weren't ready. And the big question was, can you make this into one movie? And so when I stepped in, the debate was already in progress. And for me, it was like, if you are debating this, then you're never going to make two great movies. You're always going to be in between, and you might as well just shove it all into one, and that's a 4.5, 5 hour movie. Or if you're going to get it into, let's say you want to get into a 3 hour movie, that is, you're ripping out half the songs, and then is that Wicked? And it became very clear, there was almost no question that in order to do Wicked properly, you needed to break it up. And then we needed to make that decision fast. Usually when you come in as a director and something's been sort of half developed, then you have about 2 weeks as the honeymoon period. You can do whatever you want. And so I knew you have to make big, bold choices right from the beginning, and that choice of, we're not going to debate this anymore. 2 movies, let's focus in to make each movie the best singular movie we can, and every piece of architecture that we need to do in this story in order to make that happen is what we need to do, and that's what we need to be focusing on. Of course, in the back of my mind, I'm always like, well, we're going to shoot 2. If it's better to be 1 movie, then we'll figure that out later. But we had to make bold, very specific choices, intentional choices from the very beginning. So that's where it started.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Something that I really loved
You don't
about
have to raise
the movie.
your hand. It's your podcast.
Well, sometimes I do. You like to talk too. What I really loved is that you didn't shy away from the fantasy part of this story. And a lot of people focus mainly on, okay, let's focus on the music. Let's focus on the dancing. Usually when musicals are made, let's focus on that part. And then the part that's always left out is either the surrounding area, like how the story looks, or the heart. And you tackled all of them at once. And that was, for me as a moviegoer, like he said earlier, I love Star Wars, I love Marvel, and it was great to see all of those genres, but flipped upside down with music coming through also. And you don't really see, you never see that, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Even the biggest movie musical before this, it didn't have it. I think what was it, Grease? Is that you know what I mean? It has numbers, but it's relying on the dance. It's relying on the singing and everything like that. You have great performances and musical numbers, but the movie also hits fantasy dead on, and I really, really appreciate that. As a fantasy lover, I really appreciated that. And so that's one of the reasons why this movie sticks with me so well. It's like I'm going to see Star Wars, but I'm also getting a nice show out of it too, a good song and dance out of it too.
That's great. I think because also, like I said, I'm theater adjacent, a theater kid adjacent. I'm not. I didn't come from theater, so I am definitely of the film side, and yet I love it. Those are my friends. Those are my family. That's where I enjoy watching stories, and so I think we could bridge that gap. There was a funny thing because, and I realized with Wicked that this was a property that has opportunities to do the thing that no other musical could do.
Yeah.
That the world of Oz was as important as the music of Wicked. And that we were bringing cinema lovers back to a world that they had fallen in love with cinema, maybe in the first place, and that there was a great responsibility with that, and at a time after COVID when cinemas were hurting, and at a time when people are doubting the scope and scale of what cinema can do, and we're at a time where representation is such an important thing, and in works of timeless art, that if we could incorporate a physically disabled actor, truly disabled, playing a disabled person in there. We could have people of all shapes, size, colors, ages, and have the music as not as a separate piece, but as a integral part of the expression of that in a timeless world. And by the way, that timeless fantasy world may be one of the first that has accessible ramps for the characters and things like that. That we can do that, and because ultimately the story is digging at truth. If these actors could portray the truth, and of course Myron digging that out, then we had something that was very unique in Wicked that I'd never gotten that opportunity.
I think I love what you said. And from my perspective, I don't go to these, most of the blockbusters with these budgets and these scale of production, they're not made for me. This was the first movie in a long time I can remember, where I thought, I get to enjoy the spectacle that Donald gets to see in these Marvel movies that he enjoys, but in a world that's interesting to me. I mean, I can't think of a movie That's why it's so important.
I'm
reiterating what you're saying, that gives me, a musical theater lover, scope and scale and fantasy and just, I can segue into a question. You built so much of these sets practically. I mean, this could have been it wouldn't have been nearly as beautiful if this had been a green screen. So much as a green screen. I know obviously you have some green screen in it, but you built so many practical sets. Was that hard to convince the studio to spend the money on building those worlds? Because I know you built some pretty epic sets. We can tell from watching the movie.
Yeah, I mean it still goes till today. The amount of money it takes to mount Oz is a lot. and the commitment it takes. I mean, today is a lot easier than it was 5 months ago. But when we were building these sets, that was part of the concept. You know how I said, like, you get 2 weeks to do whatever you want. Like, what I knew is I had to sell this idea that in order to have us revisit Oz, that we had to take the physical attributes of Wizard of Oz of the 1939 movie and break the matte painting. And actually, if this movie was about truth, then we needed to believe that this place actually exists, that it was not in a dream. And so that the grass had to be real, the walls had to be high, the physicality of it had to be there. And so we wanted this, I always sold this like Lawrence of Arabia, as Cleopatra, as one of those things that we only get once in our lifetime to really build. And so by pushing that hard in those first 2 weeks, I sort of like held their feet to the fire every time questions would come. And then you get someone like Nathan Crowley, our amazing production designer, who is a big troublemaker, loves to build. He worked with Nolan for many years and did Greatest Showman, and he's the one who's like, John, we're going to plant 9 million tulips. John, we're going to build the train and it's going to move. John, we're going to make that lake in front of the school. And I was like, they're going to kill us, Nathan. And he's like, you don't worry, you just keep moving and we'll make it happen. He's like, by the way, the tulips are already planted, so there's no choice. So
I love a guy like that.
Now,
I love someone like that.
Do you think it's because it's Wicked that people feel this way? Like, Wicked changed Broadway. You know, there are not a lot of shows that come into Broadway and are sold out for 2 years straight. I think Wicked was. What's the other one that that Josh Gad was a part of? The Book of Mormon is another movie that was sold out for, you couldn't get tickets for 2 years. Do you think the response that you're getting from all of these other creatives that you are collaborating with is because it's such a special piece? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it was on multiple fronts. I would think of course, Wicked, the show, that the work that Kristen, Adina, Joe, all these people did on the.
We prefer to call her Adele. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Adele Dazeem.
The work that they did was huge, obviously, lifting. I mean, it only allowed us to do what we could do. What we were able to do is then take that and use them as excuses to then crank it up and to actually build it into a cinematic world, which is a very different thing. But absolutely, Stephen Schwartz, Winnie Holzman, everybody who worked on that show for 20 years, who honed those jokes, who honed the thing, they deserve huge amounts of credit, because you don't get this kind of opportunity without the show itself, of course.
No doubt.
Let me ask you something. I was wondering, just as an example, with the library dance sequence. So you built this insane set that is just so beautiful, and then you have choreography that's specific to the moving library stacks, and stunt people, and I've literally watched behind the scenes stuff. That's the level of geeking out I've done. But what's the chicken or the egg with that? Does your production designer say, hey, John, what if there were these circular spinning library stacks? And then you go to the choreographer, okay, what could you do with that? How did that, just as an example, evolve? Because I've never directed anything, even with choreography, well, maybe one tiny thing with choreography, but I've always wondered how you as a director evolve something like that.
Yeah, it's well, I have some amazing collaborators, of course, and we've done this for many years. So we have a process, and this may not work for everybody, but for us, Myron's in on that process. Alice, our DP, is in on that process. Chris Scott, our choreographer, who I've known for so long, is in that process. By the way, Alice, our DP, I've worked with since college. So she shot my college musical.
Wow.
So we can get in a room, and usually the script is very basic in terms of the description of what's happening within the dance. I ask them not to go too into detail, because I then take all the pieces and I'll break them out and start to sort of just start to riff off of what I think could happen. And I'm there with Chris, and so then Chris adds on to that and says, well. And this is all just part of the discussion. Well, what if you did that? What if everything is circular? We start with like the themes of the movie. Okay, so Oz is everything is circular. Everything's been constructed to be perfect circles, and yet in order to be a perfect group, that the cracks need to happen, the sharp edges, the Z in Oz needs to happen, and that's where Elphaba comes in. So at Shiz, everything has been perfectly circled. We need to create some cracks in that, and this is where the young generation first starts to like let loose in their movement. So Chris starts to work on like what movement could look like. Then when I bring up this, like, what if this is turning bookshelves? We knew that everything in Oz had to be bespoke, had to be a little bit delightful. If the wizard's sort of whole plan is to distract people with delight so they didn't have to worry about, and they could always feel happy and didn't have to worry about worry or any like that, then he could be in full control. So okay, let's make the bookshelves not straight but delightfully circular. And of course, when that starts to spin, we had done in the Heights a spinning number on a fire escape. We had just experienced that. So what if this whole thing was circular? What if there's a little nod to 2001? Like, what if it had all these elements to it? We wanted to do nods to American movies because we were also sort of kicking the tires on the American story. So there was this idea that how would the dancers do that? And so then we have to convince this. So I pitch it to our group, all our heads of departments, and we have boards that Alice and I work on. We don't know any actual choreography yet. Chris doesn't even know what the dancers are able to do in a spinning wheel because he doesn't have a spinning wheel to actually. He doesn't know if he needs to hire parkour people, gymnasts, or b-boys, or whatever, or combination. And so then our engineers start to build, our physical special effects people start to say what they can build, and then Nathan starts to build what around it, how the whole library is sort of circular, and then we deal with the insurance, which is a whole nother issue, and at some point, Chris goes into all the choreography before getting into the wheel. We got the wheel, and we videotape it with iPhones or whatever we can. We start cutting it together with boards or whatever. And then when we got the wheel about 2 weeks before shooting because it was so expensive. There was a lot of fights of getting it done. There's such huge elements of engineering to actually complete it. 2 weeks before is when Chris started to actually choreograph within that. Wow. So we could have shit the bed. Like, we could have spent all this money and it wouldn't have been good. We had no idea, but Chris and I just sort of looked at each other and we're like, you just fucking figure it out because I don't want to have to turn to my line producer and say, sorry, it doesn't work.
It didn't work.
But we knew that there was that risk, and we just don't tell everybody else that.
Yeah. Myron, you must have great rhythm. Yeah, no doubt.
And then we just dump it on Myron.
Yeah, I was about to say, Myron, you must have great rhythm. Like, when the dance parties happen, you must be front and center on the dance floor. Because literally, like, from Garden State to Wicked, bro, like, everything has a rhythm. And everything is, we've been listening to John and we've been listening to Zach talk about the process of making and everything. But then you're given this huge puzzle. And of course you have help from the directors and everything. And it's, now, here's my vision, make it work. You know what I mean? Make it. When I watch it, I want it to feel like how I saw it in my head. That is so much pressure, dude. So much pressure. Well, can you talk about that at all?
Just to rewind a little bit, when I met Zach, I was so excited by the script he had written because I felt this emotion. I felt this kinship with this character. And while making the film, it was first about the heart and wearing your heart on your sleeve. And then the music was secondary. And of course, I loved musicals growing up. I loved, Hal Ashby films. I loved films that had a lot of source music, John Hughes films, all that. But it was first about the heart. And so when I got to work on Garden State and I get to apply my love for music, it was mostly about how does that support the emotion. And then when I got to work on more complicated things like In the Heights and Crazy Rich Asians and then Wicked, it all started with the heart. And then the rhythm and all that stuff afterwards just came from out of the emotion of like, what was I trying to evoke emotionally through dance or through character or through music? And so Zach came at the right time of the career. He did train me in some ways. And
I didn't train you. That was a joke.
And then when I found John, it was this further exploration about how do I sincerely express heart without it feeling cynical or something. I don't know what it was, but then to use dance and music, and then the rhythm just comes out of something internally that has to do with just expressing this emotion. It has,
but you must get so much, like, just to stick with the library example, there must be so much footage. I can't believe how you know, on an indie, there's a finite amount of footage. I'm just imagining it's so challenging for you to go, well, all of these shots, I mean, so many of these shots are beautiful for this moment. How do I decide what to go to where?
Yeah, I mean, Jon shoots a lot of, he has, sometimes in some of these big numbers, he'll have 3 cameras going at once just to make sure he's not missing something or has a little piece that we can use somewhere in the edit. And again, it's just, I really pride myself of just watching everything and just being really patient with learning the footage. And because there is some kind of nugget or kernel. I remember when we first worked together, Zach, it's like, you got to make sure you watch everything because there might be just that one little piece of improv.
Well, what I always do, and I'm directing Shrinking now, and I'm still worried about it when I'm directing Shrinking even, is like, we keep the camera rolling and we're riffing around. Yeah. And I'm always worried that the editor's going to miss something it's at the end of take 7 and it was just one take of it. And so I'm always like, you watched everything, right? You watched everything. One thing I wanted to ask you, with a number like Defying Gravity, you know, so much of this movie was practical, but in Defying Gravity, you obviously have a lot of visual effects. How do you cut something so effectively when so much of it isn't going to be there until you've locked picture? Do you know what I mean? Like that whole sequence,
her seeing herself in the mirror, in the
all
window.
of that, the whole climax of the end of the movie. How do you cut that with so much green screen footage and stuff isn't gonna you have to use your imagination.
You really use your imagination. You really have to imagine the building in the background, moving with her. But at the end of the day, you're really focused on performance, and focused on, Cynthia, and then looking at this one, I forget the cast member's name, the little girl, looking at her.
Karis, yeah.
Yeah, and then, just focusing on the performance and then imagining everything else. And then you're, of course, pacing that stuff out. And then, you start to get things like post-viz in there, and you get like, really crappy versions of a building flying in the background, or a cutout version of a monkey chasing her. But ultimately, it's just really focusing on the performance and then just trying to use your imagination. I mean, Donald, you talk about all these films like Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back, and I was always thinking about these movies when I was cutting this movie. I was just so happy I finally got a chance to work with this geeky side of myself that I've always wanted to do these movies, these really big epic films. And now I get this chance. I was like, okay, what would Spielberg do? What would Lucas do? Like what kind of shot would he want to cut to, when the balloon is going up in the air and then the, cascades, fiery down to the ground. And I
would be like, what would Chu do, Myron? What would Chu do? But you didn't listen.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it.
Do you ever call, Myron, you were cutting, I'm assuming, while they were shooting. Do you ever call Jon and be like, hey, it'd be great. You don't have this. It'd be great if you got this.
100%. I mean,
it's usually a series of texts that I ignore.
I mean, what is nice, I was in London for 8 months during the shoot, and it was over 155 days. And, to be there, and then I can actually walk downstairs to the set and say, hey, can I show you this piece? And, I think we might be missing here, or are you okay if I ask second unit to pick up something?
That's nice.
And sometimes, like on the balloon chase scene, we're kind of like figuring that scene as Jon was still shooting. Like he'd shot one version of the scene, and then we were like, maybe there should be a ticking clock with the roof closing. So then I developed it with VFX, and then I presented to Jon, and Jon's like, okay, this kind of works. This we could change, and then he shot principal and second unit again, and so it's nice to be there to be able to not affect production, but just be involved in it.
To have money, That's all that is, man. Y'all some rich people.
I know. I mean, just for those.
Let's just change this.
For our listeners who don't know film production, I mean, this is just filmmaking on the largest scale. Second unit is a whole nother unit that's shooting stuff that doesn't involve the stars. So for Myron to be able to like, hey, do you mind if I have second unit go off and shoot this? That's pretty bougie.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what the best part about working with someone like Myron, and you really did, Zach. I don't know how you guys got to this, but finding those little in between moments in takes, like that's to me was what I've been always looking for, because I love finding things with our actors. You know, the hardest part I think about directing is getting used to not being in control all the time. When you're making your little things, you are literally in control all your time. I'm telling my friends to grab the thing at this time and whatever. But when you start to get into the bigger movies, you need people, and you need them to make it better than you ever could. If it's what you could imagine in your bedroom, then it's not good enough. And so you're constantly, I think you have to have the fundamentals right. Your intention of the story, what the architecture is, how you want these characters to unfold. Then, if you're going to be truly collaborative, the actors bring a whole new perspective to that. Yeah. At a certain point, I always say, like, we can plan, but when you start making the movie starts speaking back to you, and you better be listening. And that's where Myron comes in, because he's the ultimate listener. He's getting footage that I haven't even shared how I think it's being cut. He hasn't even seen boards of some of these things that's in my head. I don't even share boards with people on set, really, because I just want to feel like we're just playing in most instances, and I want the freedom to be able to do that and not have check boxes. But then I dump it to Myron, and he has to actually figure it out himself and go where instinctually it feels right in the performances themselves, or with the camera work, or whatever it is. And so for me, that reset, and you have to do that reset several times in this movie to find the best version, takes experience, it takes trust with each other, within yourself. But that's my favorite part, is that you just don't know.
Yeah, and one thing that you're saying that applies to all filmmakers who are listening, whether you're about to direct a several $100 million movie, or you're going to direct your first short film, and you've spoken a lot about this, Jon, is reliance on your collaborators and trust in your collaborators, and not needing to be the one who has the best idea. That's something I really had to grow into. When I made Garden State, I was like, I have to be the one. This is my movie. I wrote it. I have to be the one who has the best idea. And little by little, Larry Sher, the legendary DP, would be like, I know you want to put the camera here, but look at it over here. And I'd be like, wow, that is cool. Or Myron would cut some sequence, and I'd be like, holy shit, that's not how I didn't think you were going to put, I wanted to put the Simon & Garfunkel song in the movie. I didn't think it was going to go here. I've got goosebumps all over my whole body. And what you're saying with all your collaborators on set, that's something I'm still doing. We were improvising a scene in Shrinking the other day, and we had cut, and as we were moving on to change the setup, the DP riffed a punchline to a joke. And I went, why didn't you fucking say that earlier? That's the funniest joke we've come up with. And he was like, it's too late. I go, no, roll it again. We're going to go again and do the DP's joke. And that's awesome. Take a lot of time for me to get to a place where I can have my ego be relaxed and be open to, like, whoever has the best idea wins, And
it's a balance too, because you do have to lead the group,
of course,
to a horizon, and yet you have to be open enough to discover the better things that come about, and that is a difficult thing, and I you struggle with it the whole time, no matter what. Like, even when score comes in, and the score isn't exactly what you've lived with in the temp, and then you start to feel like, well, I didn't really wanted that beat, but then they're offering you something, and if you're not listening to it, and maybe they're wrong, and you have to be aware when they're wrong, and get you back on course. But there are plenty of moments where they're actually itching at something or a symptom of something that you need to address.
I'm going to say two things that are probably going to get me in a lot of trouble. Two things that are probably going to get me in
he's
trouble.
gotten comfortable. Wait, we need Daniel. Wait, Daniel, come back on. When Donald says something inappropriate, Daniel shakes his head, and he knows to stop. Okay,
thank goodness for digital chip in the camera now instead of film, because all of these things that you guys, Daniel, don't do that.
That's not controversial.
Because all of these things that you guys are asking for. I thought you were going to
be like, can I get Cynthia's number? Okay, go ahead.
But thank goodness for that, because now you can afford to go back and do things that you couldn't do before. Back in the day when it was film, and this is the amount of film we have for the movie, yo. So we can't just go back to the other setup and shoot. That's one. Zach, you told me a story once. This is the other thing that I thought was amazing. And it was when you were filming Going in Style and Alan
Arkin.
I almost called him Alan Alda. That's the dude from MASH. Alan Arkin, he was on the bench and with the love interest in the show, and they were, going back and forth. They had a line, and you didn't know if you got it or anything like that. And some of the magic was actually in the in-between takes where they're just talking as the camera is, settling, and they're getting shots and everything like that. And he's looking at her and he's giving her looks and she's giving him looks. And a lot of that information wasn't present while you were shooting the thing, but actually came after it was shot. And those things wound up in the movie.
Well, that scene you're talking about was an example where I when it was over, I was like, oh Jesus, I didn't crack this scene, and we're out of time. And I was not operating on a Wicked like budget where it was like, well, we're going to reshoot that next week and figure it out. So I handed it off to Myron and was like, I don't know, can you make something out of this? And Myron did. Myron found those moments, and I think that there's so much to be found in the unexpected, and just letting the camera roll and letting people continue to talk and riff. And that example you're giving is that they had such a nice banter and friendship, those two actors on set, that there were little magical moments in just watching them interact that we actually ended up using in a cut of that scene.
I'm interested to know, like, for you, Zach, too, is because you've been on both sides. Like, when you started directing, did that change the way you saw acting, what your role was as an actor on set of being present and what you were trying to control? Or did that make you more aware of, like, oh shit, my performance could be changed very dramatically?
That's a great question. What I felt was, sometimes I just need a shot of you looking out the window. like you don't need to do all the thinking you're doing and overthinking and get tears in your eyes because your dad screamed at you. Just like, I just need a shot of you looking out the window. And and that really helped me as an actor, because it is such a collaborative collage. On the other side of things, there's times where I thought I really brought it, and I see a cut of my performance, and I think, oh, you didn't make me. I remember on the pilot of Scrubs, Bill Lawrence was cutting out air from a dramatic moment to make the show so tight, and I was like, I even had the audacity at that young of an age to be like, you made me look like not as good of an actor, because the right thing to do there is to take a pause and digest that information and not just speak right away. So there are moments where you're like, why did you? It does make me as an actor when I'm sometimes feel like there's a better performance than the one you cut of me, and I can sometimes I'm in a position where I can say, hey, why didn't you use that take? Or, hey, when you play that on my back, I think it's weird. Or a lot of times with comedy, because I do think that's the thing I have the most experience on, I promise you that joke will play better if you cut to me for the reaction, or cut to the other person. The joke doesn't land on the person saying it. It's going to land on the reaction for the other person. That kind of thing just has become natural in my body. Yeah.
I mean, that also has so much of, like, what if Myron doesn't know how to cut a joke, then the joke will not work. It doesn't matter how good the performance is. Or you step back and you let the actor play the joke out. And then, so it's always like,
it's so funny when you go somewhere, you test a comedy and you go, why isn't that joke working? It was so funny on set. And then it can literally be removing some frames, or it can be literally what I'm saying, where you're trying to play the joke on the person who said the funny thing. Whereas then you discover the audience laughs way harder when you cut to the deadpan reaction of the person listening, and you just didn't see it that way. By the way, were you able to test this movie, or because it was so high profile? Was that helpful to you, the testing process?
It was. It was really helpful because, well, first of all, we do a series of smaller screenings, like almost like any other film, where you're testing it on your friends and like groups of like 5 and 10 and 15, and then you get more confident over time, and then you're testing on like 200 really close friends.
Yeah.
close friends, and then you go out to, like, we went out to Arizona and Vegas and San Diego, and they had to sign NDAs and all that stuff. But we wanted to make sure that the film was going to work for a general audience, and I think that was really brave of Mark Platt and Universal to allow us to do that. And
yeah, it's so helpful. And I know a lot of times with these huge movies, these huge IPs, they don't want to do it just because they don't even want to risk anything. Anyone going online and saying, I saw an early cut and all that stuff. But I think it would be so helpful for you guys to get the feedback, especially with a musical comedy.
Yeah, I think some directors don't like to share because they want their work, and that's what it is. And I just think for us, I think it's not necessarily what the audience says back, because most of their solutions are not, they don't know the architecture, so they don't know solutions, but the consistency of the symptoms of something, whether they don't, they're not rooting for this character. So it's not necessarily in that scene that's the problem. It's, well, we need to like empathize with that character way earlier. So I think we need that data in order to find solutions.
I think it's the most valuable thing is just sitting with the audience.
Yeah.
I mean, you can feel when they're lost, you can feel when they're bored, you can feel the jokes that aren't playing, and that's more valuable than anything they write on the cards.
Yeah,
that's part of my question. Then, when do you know you did it? When do you know? So you completed the movie.
Friday night of opening weekend, probably, right?
Really? Is that when it happens? Okay, so here's an example. I remember when I saw Remember the Titans for the first time. I got to show it.
Oh, were you in that, Donald?
I was. It's a little movie by Disney.
Oh, is Denzel Washington in that?
Denzel Washington is the star of it.
Oh, okay.
I'm in it also with Denzel. I have quite a few scenes with him, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
I hold my own, John. I hold my own. Anyway, the point is, I remember holding a small group of people in a theater. Jerry Bruckheimer and them were nice enough to allow me to have my family come and see the movie. Some of my cousins, and my parents were in a big musical theater. They were in a theater growing up, for me growing up. So I watched my parents do musical theater. That's what I should say. So a lot of the repertory company came, or a lot of the company came. And we're watching it, and they're so into it. And there was that moment where it was like, holy shit, I did it. I did exactly what I told my mom I was going to do. I left the house and I fucking became an actor, and I'm in a movie that everybody's going to fucking go see. I know it for a fact. I could feel it right now as just by the way everyone in the room is behaving. Some people look at when when musical artists go into the studio and they're making a song, and there's that moment where it's like, oh shit, we made a hit before it even hits the radio. They just know. I'm asking all three of you, at what point, Myron, John, Zach, Myron, where you're like, okay, this is all I can do. I think this is it. John, where you're like, holy fuck, we made it. Zach, where you're like, there was a point where you saw Garden State and you were like, holy shit, everybody's gonna love this shit. There's gotta be a moment in
that's a great question, and I want John to go first, but I'll just say that there's two different moments really. There's holy shit, I made something I'm proud of, and B, holy shit, the audience likes this.
Mm-hmm.
So John, what was that for you?
Well, I remember it more clearly for Crazy Rich Asians, because I did not have any big expectations for that. And I loved that movie. I loved making that movie. When we were there, it felt like something special was happening, but I still held on to the idea that no one's ever seeing this movie, but what we were doing was the right thing to do. When we showed it to we showed that movie to our first audience, and watching them fall in love with those characters who did not look traditionally like their romantic leads, and they were crying and doing and following along these things that felt so specifically to me and my family. And then they stayed in the lobby for like an hour afterwards, just talking about it. To me, that meant everything. Now, we hadn't opened yet, but it felt like, okay, we did our thing. I think for and then In the Heights, when we did In the Heights, I felt when we were making it, I literally said, like, this is the best I can do. Like, something is really working in this, and I don't know what it is. And then the movie came out and nobody went to see it. And so I have had, and then the critics loved it, and then nobody went to go see it. So I had this like mental whiplash. And so for Wicked, I made myself very prepared that it didn't matter how I felt about after it, that I was only focusing on process. I was only focusing on getting it to as best as we could. And then I had to like shield everything out. It was too painful in the heights, to be honest. And so I've kept it actually pretty far from me. And we have a second half, so it's also like it's not done yet. So I'm thinking a little bit ahead. I think at the AFI luncheon, when they showed the clips from all the Oscar nominated movies or whatever, and they showed the end of Wicked, and all those scenes were amazing from all the other movies. I was like, oh no, they're going to show a musical scene from our movie, and it's going to be like, oh, just a musical number, whatever. But when they showed the end of Defying Gravity, that audience in that room connected so hard, and these are people who are jaded, and they clapped so loud and stood up, what they hadn't done for anyone, and it just felt like no matter what you give us or not give us or acknowledge, it makes you feel this. It makes you feel, and remember the Titans? I remember being in that audience, when they scored a touchdown, everybody was standing in the theater. I'd never felt that. I was like, we have that with Defying. If we can do that, and I think I said that to you, Myron. Remember the Titans? There's a moment, if we can get people to stand up in that theater, that's like our goal. We get this beautiful gift of Defying Gravity. So I haven't fully let it in, but I've left pieces in yet so far.
Love it. I love it. Thank you for that.
I mean,
Go ahead, Myron.
Well, certainly, this is going to sound silly, but in both Garden State, Crazy Rich Asians, In the Heights, and Wicked, it's the same feeling I have when I finish the assembly. If I'm crying and feeling emotional, and I'm feeling the same way on the mixing stage and in the theater, like I know it's working. And consistently with all those movies, I felt that over and over again. Of course, it's nice when they're applauding at AFI. I mean, that was an incredible experience. Or even at the Oscars, you're like sitting there like, oh my God, they're playing a clip at the Oscars, But it really is that very pure moment of like what it feels like when you see the movie for the first time and you're like, oh my God, I'm just feeling deeply for these characters. This seems so special. I remember my first cup at Garden State or going to Sundance for the first time, it all felt like the same feeling. It just was like, it just was on repeat. And so when that, the first cut of Wicked was before John saw it, was on my birthday, like 2 years ago. And my assistants were in the room with me and we're just crying. And it was like, card saying, shot of monkeys missing here. But still, it was just like this really ultimately just beautiful emotional experience.
Zachary?
Well, for me, it was, in Garden State, it was, Myron and I cut that in my living room. And so we were sitting there thinking, I think we made something really good, but we had no idea. And then I remember it got into Sundance and it played at the Eccles Theater and I introduced it and I went to the back of the theater and I just started sobbing. I just felt like I can't believe this happened. I can't believe we're here. I can't believe my first movie's premiering at Sundance and then it had such a reaction. It was really one of the greatest moments of my life. And with my last film, A Good Person, I was so happy with it and so proud of it. And then it didn't really have the theatrical reaction I wanted, and that was a really disappointing. It's similar to what Jon is saying about In the Heights. I really felt really sad that it didn't have the theatrical reaction. And then when it finally was free on Prime at Christmas, it was #1 on Prime. And then all of these Christmas movies started coming in. And I was like, oh, this is definitely going to get kicked out of the top 10 on Prime because of all these Christmas movies. And it stayed in the top 10 on Prime with just A Good Person and Christmas movies for like 2 weeks. And the executive at Amazon called me. And she's like, do you know how many people are watching this movie when you're in the top 5 on Amazon Prime across the globe? So then I finally felt like some vindication for it not performing well theatrically. But it's all right. 2 more questions because I know you guys got to go. But I just wanted to say, Myron, I read that it was your idea, or Jon, it was a collaboration. But what was the decision process behind not just going hard cut to black after the big note, but having that boom, 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 which I loved. Yeah, I thought that was rad, and I know
and then
there's
she
a little
takes off
story.
into the sky. Da, na, 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 da, boom,
Yeah.
and then she takes off. Dum, 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 dum.
I thought that was brilliant. What was the process of that?
Well, so of course you get ended on the war cry. I sometimes I don't know.
I love that you called it a war cry.
That's
what we call it.
I'm gonna kill you. That's what she's saying.
Oh God, those are not the notes. Sorry, everybody.
Not everybody
That's
can be
pretty good,
Cynthia
though.
Erivo. Thank you. See, well, John.
Yeah, well, at least
I'm
don't hurt our
available.
listener. Don't. Yeah, I think they already shot the part 2, Donald. But, all right, go ahead, Myron.
Yeah, so that of course that's where you're supposed to end. I think when I was John oftentimes will say, do you want to know my plan with the film, like how to cut a scene together? And I say, no, I don't want to know your plan because I want to play with the footage and just see, what do I come up with? Just that way, if I make mistakes or I just discover something from the course of editing, then that's great. And one of those things was how to end the movie. And I had basically had a lot of previs of Alphabet flying, and I was like, I want to use some of this footage. And so during my first assembly, I actually went to my music editors and said, can we extend the music after the war cry? And the music editors, of course, are looking at me like, I don't know if we should do that. And we're like, no, it's just me and you. We're just messing around a little bit. And it was like, yeah, okay. Our amazing music editors, Jack Dillman and Catherine Wilson, they said, okay, we'll try to extend that. And then, of course, kind of worked. And then I literally said to Jack, like, can we try the 2001, timpani hits to help? And then I said to him, can we repeat the word down? And it was just like, no, we can't do any of this. Steven Schwartz, John, everyone's going to kill us. And I was like, just try it. And so we did it. We workshopped the idea at my assembly stage. And then I presented it to John. Little did I know, 8 months later, I'm watching the end of E.T. at Vidiot's. And I'm watching, and literally John Williams is doing these same timpani hits. And I think that something just in my DNA had told me to extend this moment, make it feel like this Back to the Future, Empire Strikes Back, cliffhanger ending. And then I presented John, and there's a lot of debate after you do these things, whether it's the right idea, but it ended up sticking.
I loved it.
He also was not in the room when I showed the movie to Steven Spielberg, and I'm sitting there after in the dark with him, and he turns to me and he says, I heard those E.T. timpanis.
He did.
I was about to say, Steven Spielberg was like, y'all took that from E.T.
I was like, Myron, where's Myron? Let me get him.
Wait, I've never heard you. Did he actually say that? Or are you making that up?
100% said
That's
that.
hilarious.
I told you that.
No, you didn't. That's the first time. That's so.
But wait, John, did you re-record the orchestra, or are those literally the timpanis from E.T.?
No, they're not there. They were our own orchestra for sure.
Steven Spielberg watches all the Wicked, and at the end of it goes, oh, you took that from E.T.
You stole that shit. I was like, oh God.
But that's the highest compliment. That's the highest compliment when they actually know what you're doing. That's like, it's
All right, last
That
question.
was great. That was
yeah.
a great moment. That is one of my look. There are so many moments in this movie that are my favorite moments. I was really worried about Popular. I didn't know how you were going to be able to do that. Defying Gravity. You have an imagination that succeeded. That my imagination, but Popular. I was so worried about how are they going to make this part funny? How are they going to make this part good? That's
funny.
But that's the piece in the play where if you miss that one, guess what? There we.
Well,
And you're in a dorm room, and you're stuck in a dorm room, and now you're really late in this movie. If you actually look at the architecture, do you really need Popular, the song? I'm not sure it moves anything forward. So we had to give reasons for it to be. She had to be fucking on it, on everything, and not, again, copying anything of Kristen. And the dorm had to have space and room for them to do. It was a lot.
It was
shot
so
the
funny.
second week of shooting.
It's
By the way, when I was
amazing.
watching it, I was in the theater going, "She's fucking hilarious."
She's amazing.
I
Absolutely.
was watching this going, holy shit, Ariana Grande's doing look, okay, so look, my kids love Victorious, which is a television show that she was on back in the day. And if you watch that show now, it's a bunch of great performances from young actors and actresses and stuff like that. But the person that really stands out is Ariana. You know what I mean? She's the comic relief in it. She's the voice in it too. She's the actual person who's carrying it with her singing and everything. Everybody else is kind of dancing and singing too, but she's the star. And you don't really notice it until you go back and watch it. When I saw that she got this part, I was like, she's getting nominated for an Oscar. I was saying that before. I was saying that from the gate. Once the trailer came out, I was like, she's getting nominated. It's a wrap. When that part came up and I was like, all right, now here's the thing. Do you Ariana Grande this situation and you sing it with all of this soul and stuff? Or do you stick to what the way it was? And the fact that she was able to find that middle and hit you still with the little riff here and there, you can't beat it. Like I saw somebody say, I don't know where I'm going with this. I saw somebody on the internet say, look, ladies and gentlemen of the Wicked community, those of you who are going to go on and do Wicked on Broadway or off Broadway, please stick to the way it is originally written. You don't have what it takes to do what Ariana and Cynthia did. Like, sincerely, like it's just, it was so refreshing because we could have, I just love the movie so much, but you can't do the same movie as the play and expect everybody to be like,
absolutely,
that you did it. It has to be something different. It has to be innovative. There has to, George Lucas is the king of saying this. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're not really making good movies. You're just making a movie. Yeah. You got to make it different in some way, and you found ways.
Thank you. And the theater experience is completely different than the cinematic experience in terms of the perspective of the audience. Like, we had to uncover very early that when the audience sits in a theater, you're in with the world that's in front of you. You're expecting a musical. She comes in the bubble. She's like, Galinda is the host for the night, and then and then the odd girl drops in, the green girl, and then you laugh at the green girl, and then she has to win you over throughout. But you still have Galinda as the host. In the movie, the audience is skeptical from the beginning, like, show me why I need to believe in a musical world. I don't even like musicals. Why? Right. And so you have this wall already, and then the green girl drops in, and everyone's singing around her, and she's looking around, and she's the audience, being like, "What the fuck have I just dropped into? And why are all these people singing?"
That's
and so
smart.
her first words in Wizard and I, did that really just happen? And she starts to sing. You're like, oh my gosh, she has a better singing like power than anybody in this movie, and you're like. Then you root for her, and it's through the medium of the actual way you're telling this story. And I think all those things, and then the brilliance of Ariana Grande is that, you laugh at her in this movie because she's silly and crazy, whatever. She's fully committed. But by the time you get to the Ozfest, and she sacrifices her own sort of what she thinks is important to be there just with her friend, or this new friend, then by the time you get to Popular, you're not laughing at her anymore. You're laughing with her. And that transition, because right before she says, "It's not your fault." And you can see in Cynthia's, and this is Myron's brilliance, is that you see in Cynthia's eyes her like falling for this girl, like, wow, she sees the world so simply and it has value. And then Glinda says, "Oh, look, it's tomorrow." Like hope in a bottle. And then she gets to sing Popular, and now you're in love with them, you're in love with her, and now Popular comes across as like just fun, and it's driving their relationship closer. So we had to recognize the different medium in order to uncover the things we need to do in this movie to make it work. Actually,
well, you were such the perfect person for the job.
I'm
John.
about to say.
Thank you.
I was about to say that.
I'm so glad you both got the assignment. I can't wait to watch the next part. I love For Good. That song is just one of the most beautiful songs ever written.
I'm excited to see the battles. These motherfuckers are going to be fighting each other and everything like that. I'm excited for that.
John,
too.
Did you ever see the video of Kristen Chenoweth at the Hollywood Bowl calling up a school teacher to sing For Good with her?
No, I've seen some of those kind of videos, but I haven't seen that one in particular.
Well, I think it's safe to assume it was a plant, and she knew because just go the audience go watch this. And John, please, and Myron, watch it. It's Cynthia Erivo at the Hollywood Bowl, and she says, "I need someone to sing for good with me," and she calls up a woman from the audience, and the woman. She says, "What do you do?" She says, "I actually teach singing. I'm a school teacher," and everyone applauds. And the woman proceeds to give the most breathtaking rendition of the song with Kristen.
Wow. Well, that's with Kristen Chenoweth, not with Cynthia Erivo. That's with Kristen.
With Kristen Chenoweth. Yeah. Did I say Cynthia? I meant Kristen. Anyway, it's just a little thing I wanted to share with you because
I will say about the Hollywood Bowl is you did a video there for Joshua Radin, and
Holy shit,
love that video.
Oh, John, thank you.
And there's a simplicity with the light that you did with it. It was just so beautiful. And in our end credits when we talk about the lights, that was part of the inspiration. I was like, oh yeah, that video like that Zach did. And so anyway, that video stays is in my brain a lot. Actually.
We don't have a lot of them, John. But if you want to come to the Garden State concert, I'm sure my boy can hook it up. Myron, same thing with you.
Let's go.
You guys are totally
I don't know
welcome.
if you're in LA on March 29th, John Chu, but Myron's going to be there, and I know a fellow that can get you in.
We can get you some tickets.
I'll make myself
Since
available.
I know you like both Garden State and things
the
shot
soundtrack
and things shot in outdoor amphitheaters. Last question. Donald and I heard you're doing Joseph, and I know that 50-year-old men might be too old, but listen.
To play Jesus.
No,
just to
Jesus
play
is
Jesus.
not in Joseph. Jesus, you're fucking ruining my pitch already. That's Jesus Christ Superstar.
My bad.
All right, now we're down to 45 seconds.
Okay.
Do you want Donald and I to audition, even though we're 50 and most of the characters probably aren't 50? We would love to. I had a pitch that Donald and I were going to do Joseph on Broadway, and we were going to alternate all of the principal roles.
Dude, this is not going to work. He's nodding like this. Oh, did you? Really? Interesting.
Anyway, I love the show.
I love Joseph so much.
Yeah.
And I want to do something that is just ridiculous and crazy and for some reason, I don't know, Joseph has always been that for me, but also about a dreamer, someone who's dreaming of something for themselves.
I also feel like the show is so much better than the treatment it gets. It's always sort of been treated it's always been treated like a Vegas act. And I think that the show is so much better and smarter than that. So I'm glad it's in your hands.
I'm going to say this and then we're going to let you go.
He's got to go.
I say this to Zach all the time. You guys both should be directing Star Wars and or Marvel. I'm just going to put it out there. Put it out there.
What if I told you that they're on to things that are more important to us than that? All right, guys, thank you for your time. We know you're so busy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, we were almost in Joseph, and you had to ruin it.
I didn't ruin anything. You
had to make a Jesus joke, and then you allowed him to pivot off of us.
Look, my point is this.
This fucking ice cream truck's back. This fucking ice cream truck is back.
We have to be persistent like the ice. If we want to be a part of his world, we have to be persistent like the fucking ice cream truck and consistently be outside his window.
I want y'all to know that it's fucking March 18th in New York and the fucking ice cream truck is back. Anyway, that was amazing, huh?
That was wonderful.
That was one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. Two people at the top of their game.
I was about to say, this will go down in history 10 years from now. Hopefully this ages like fine wine and you and I both keep our nose clean. But we just had, in my opinion, the next big blockbuster director on this podcast. And I think in 10 years he will do, I look at him like Spielberg and I look at him like Lucas in a lot of ways because he's very innovative and he's doing something different with musical and fantasy. I imagine Joseph in the Technicolor Dream Coat is going to be freaking outrageous, bro.
He's so smart. I love what he was saying when he was talking about how like Oz, everything in Oz is meant to be a distraction and it's perfect. And then the Z is alphabet that cuts through the perfection of Oz. I was like, oh shit.
It's refreshing to see someone. I mean, you're very much like this too. The way you talk about directing and everything like that and telling stories, you could tell he's a fan of the stories that he's telling.
Let's go back to the fact that my Josh Radin video at the Hollywood Bowl inspired him.
Not only that, dude, he talked
I'm
about Remember the
responsible for
Titans
Wicked being
and
so
how
good.
So was Remember the Titans, bro.
No,
So was Remember the. He said Remember the Titans. If we could have that feeling like that.
I don't know. That was
Did you miss that? Did you miss that? No.
He basically, my Josh Radin music video is the reason Wicked was so good.
I'm gonna go and say the reason to Remember the Titans is the reason why Wicked was so good, because he wanted to get that feeling that you got when they scored a touchdown in Remember the Titans, and how the audience stood up in the movie theater. He wanted that for Wicked. That's what I heard.
You know what I think about what you just said?
What?
Eat these balls, Zach.
Oh boy.
All right, what a show, Joelle. Thank you for coordinating all that. I know it was tricky to get it all scheduled.
That was most impressive, and the fact that he stayed on for as long as he stayed on too. He stayed on for over an hour. So
thank you to Myron Kerstein and John Chu, and audience. If you're listening and you're going to be in LA March 29th, come check out my benefit for the Midnight Mission, the Garden State 20th anniversary concert. And if you can't make it, buy a ticket to stream it starting April 6th. You can buy the tickets right now at veeps.com. Every single cent of your streaming ticket purchase goes to the charity. And also you can buy merch there. The merch isn't even available. This is a little podcast insider scoop. The merch isn't even available to buy yet. But if you go to the Veep site, they've got it up there so you can buy it already.
Ooh, pre-orders.
All right.
Inside scoop.
I love you guys. Count us out, Donald.
Bro. What a great show. 5, 6,
Here's
7, 8.
some stories about a show we made, about a bunch of docs and nurses